I'm Zunaira Azhar and you're watching Epicenter, where we dissect, analyze and help understand major domestic and global stories. This week has been grappled with the moto proceedings by the Supreme Court of Pakistan on the matter relating to the judges' allegations of spy agencies' interference in the judicial matters. At the same time, there have been sharp jabs coming right from the Prime Minister's own party, casting doubts on the legitimacy of the general elections 2024. And all the while, PTI seems to be all geared up for a grand opposition alliance. This and more on the harrowing details of how India has admitted to the assassination of at least 20 Pakistani citizens on Pakistan's soil. We have been joined to discuss this all by Fahd Husain, senior journalist and political analyst, Muhammad Malik, also a seasoned senior journalist and political analyst, and Mr. Zahid Husain, another senior seasoned journalist. Welcome to the show, all of you. And Fahd, coming straight to you on the judges' allegations case. We all agree that such shenanigans exist and that it shouldn't be this way. But why are we looking at it so differently, knowing that the recent example of Justice Shaukat Siddiqui's case, despite that he publicly named Major General Faiz Hamid, no concrete steps were taken against him. So why are we expecting, and why are people following this case with the expectations that there is going to be a concrete outcome out of it?
I think there is no doubt that this particular issue that you're referring to has now become a major controversy is so early in the days of the new government. Now, to your question of why we should expect anything different in comparison to how the case of Justice Shaukat Siddiqui transpired, I think the difference is that twofold. Number one, Justice Shaukat Siddiqui's case went all the way up to the Supreme Judicial Council, and ultimately, as per the latest order, he has been found right, and his dismissal from service, which was ordered by the previous dispensation at the Supreme Court, has been found wrong. So clearly, his position, his allegations, his accusations, his stand against what he had to endure, that has proven to be correct and right and acknowledged so by the Supreme Court. That is why we see, Zunaira, that in the letter that the judges of the High Court wrote to the Supreme Judicial Council, they referred to the judgment in favor of Justice Shaukat Siddiqui, which essentially means that that particular judgment either emboldened these judges or convinced them that now they had a legal platform on which they could air their grievances. Now, that done, the initial formation of the commission by the government in agreement with the Supreme Court was seen to be a weak response, or at least a relatively weak response to the challenge. However, now that the Supreme Court has taken moto, we've had one round of hearing, and we've also heard judges like Justice Athar Minallah and Justice Mansoor Ali Shah, and even the Chief Justice use fairly strong language to say that this interference cannot be tolerated, and they intend to take this matter to a logical conclusion. So to me, that shows that the Supreme Court now, willingly or unwillingly, I can't say, has now faced up to the challenge of trying to obtain some kind of an outcome which is not seen as a weak institutional response. I think they are now left with no choice but to carry on this issue till a logical conclusion, and in some way create more space for the institution and less space for interference from the executive. So in my opinion, I think we will see something more concrete than what we've seen in the earlier days.
All right. Mr. Malik, you've heard what Fahd has to say, that we are expecting something concrete coming out of this, and it is not going to be something ambiguous, something that has not done justice to the complete thing. But my question remains that why should we expect something different? Because there is a trajectory involved, there is a history involved. Do you actually think that establishment is going to back off, and this particular judgment, whatever judgment it might be, should be seen as a decisive moment in the judiciary's quest for their independence?
I don't think we should. I sort of disagree with Fahd. I don't think this matter is going to reach a logical conclusion that we all were hoping for. Let's first talk about Shaukat Siddiqui for a second. Judge Siddiqui was given relief on purely technical grounds. The Supreme Court found faults with the disqualification process, and whether he was given a fair hearing and blah blah blah, all that's a long debate. But he was given relief on violation of the code of conduct, and the court ruled no, he did not. So it's a different thing. I think confusing Justice Siddiqui's exoneration or revival or restoration or whatever with an actual what you call authenticating his version of other related events would be a little stretch. Why am I not so optimistic about this? For two reasons. We have to talk very carefully because we're talking about the Supreme Court here. This letter by the 6 judges has as much to do with internal politics between the judges' camp as much it has to do with the reality of intervention by intelligence agencies.
Absolutely.
There's absolutely not an iota of doubt that intelligence agencies have been, are doing so, and probably in the future also they will continue doing so, and that is influence and try to control certain judicial outcomes. But having said that, look at how the Chief Justice, I think it's the Chief Justice who's been put in a dock or in a no-win situation by my earlier comment that I said it's got something to do with the internal thing also. Everybody knew by Sunday evening that Justice Tasadduq Jilani is pulling out. Monday morning, the same Chief Justice said that he had suggested a commission and given names and everything, turns into a suo moto. Just doesn't make sense. Like, why? The natural course of things should have been okay. If one judge has accused himself, let's say Jilani Saab has accused himself, the other suggested name was Nasrul Mulk Saab. Did they even talk to Nasrul Mulk? Or did they even have a third option? Suddenly he's to and fro. First, there's a hue and cry. First, he gives an explanation. Look, you know, I didn't have the executive powers, blah, 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 when I came to know about it. If Umar Bandial Saab, he did not call me, he did not consult me, okay, forget it. Let's not go there. Now you become the Chief Justice. The letter comes to you and it accuses the executive of, because the letter says the intelligence agencies on the directive of the executive are doing this. So, and they wanted this whole thing to be judged and discussed at the judicial forum. They first wanted calling of a judicial conference of all the High Court judges and everything, so it could be discussed. So your judiciary comes to you, writes a letter to you, accusing the executive of ordering intelligence agencies to manipulate, harass and everything. You as a Chief Justice, in fact, go to the same executive, call them over, you give names, and then the thing rolls. So was it a bailout? I don't know. I don't think it's a good idea for IB or police and others to investigate. It should be done by a person who is, you know, in line with sensitivities or realizes the sensitivities of judiciaries and all those involved. So he's again talked about things are going towards another commission. So if you're going to another commission, then there was already a commission. Why a suo moto? I just think everybody's trying to diffuse the situation. And okay, you form a commission and it's done by a full court of Supreme Court. Yes, it will sound greater, it will have a...
Okay, before...
And one more thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
His decision of Dharna case holds the field. If he could just get that implemented, we wouldn't have the need for all these commissions and all that. If there had been accountability in that case, today these judges would have been safe. We wouldn't be needing these commissions. Why doesn't the Supreme Court first focus on implementing the verdicts it has already delivered, then to run after verdicts or directives that may come in future, that may need to be implemented, and blah, blah, blah. You already have things in your hand. Get them implemented. So I think it's a lot of, you know, there's a lot of fog around this whole issue. I don't see it going anywhere.
All right, Mr. Zahir Husain, I'll engage you in the debate as well. In your own words, the judges have spoken, and the rot is much deeper than it seems. Can you elaborate that?
Well, I think this kind of allegations have been made in the past too, but not that publicly. It is the first time that 6 judges have written about it, and whatever happened to them. And it's when you read the letter, it's basically a harrowing story. of whatever has been done to the judges who has refused to comply with the instructions of the power B. But I think probably the difference between this letter and Shaukat Siddiqui's is very different. The circumstances were very different at that point, and obviously the Judicial Commission at that point had sacked him, not because of him, but basically the way he spoke to. I think it was a wrong decision, reversed by the Supreme Court this time. But this letter has much greater implications. Number one, the circumstances in which they have been written is a very different one, and it has created a critical it has fueled an already volatile situation, and it has become a very explosive situation now. And the other thing is that the legal fraternity itself, it has taken a stand. It has been demanding that certain action should be taken, and that has forced the Supreme Court to take suo motu notice. The open trial is the first time in the history, and all those things are being debated, which had not done in the past. But what's going to happen, one has to see, because it is not, the judges have spoken. Now it is up to the Supreme Court to uphold the sanctity of the institution. But I think probably the very fact that debate has been started, that some of the things which have been been happening, but not spoken that openly, now come up to surface. What can Supreme Court do? Yes, I think a lot to do. The judges have demanded, the 6 judges who have written the letter have demanded that some kind of framework should be made, and I think probably the Supreme Court will have to do something about it. I'm not saying that all the culprits will be brought into the dock. That will not happen. They may not happen, but it does not mean that nothing could be happening. I think probably it already has huge impact. And it will be some kind of deterrent for the intelligence agency to act in the future. I think probably this is how I see the situation. It has already created a situation where it will be much more difficult for the executive to pressurize the judiciary. I'm not saying that it will come to an end completely, but it will become much more difficult. And I think something will come out from the Supreme Court's proceedings.
All right, you sound optimistic, but there are still questions lingering in the minds of the people that why the previous 2 Chief Justices were reluctant when it came to such complaints in their tenure, and also that why the current Chief Justice was reluctant to take the suo motu in the first place. I'll be asking these questions from Fahd after a short break. Welcome back to Epicenter once again. Fahd, you must have heard my questions earlier. I just want to know what took it so long for the Chief Justice to take the suo motu in the first place? And also, what about the last 2 Chief Justices? Why didn't they pay any attention to these complaints?
Zunaira, I think what Malik Saab said, one thing I would agree is that clearly there is this element of politics within the judiciary that is at play. It's always been there. This is nothing new. The dispensation might be different, the groupings might be different, but these ups and downs of judicial politics always play a role in such things. So that has happened. Now, why do I say that? Because as you very correctly said, that this issue of what the interference of the executive in the Islamabad High Court, for example, is not new, and that is written very clearly in the letter that the 6 judges have written. It's been happening for a long time, even before this government and even before this Chief Justice. Now, clearly the previous Chief Justices were aware of this. They did not make any special effort to address these issues. Perhaps that was linked to their relationship with the establishment of that time. Perhaps it was judicial politics at play, and these judges perhaps were seen to be on the other side, so to speak. Difficult to say. But I think what one can say with a fair degree of clarity now is that this time around things are a bit different. And I say that because I agree that perhaps the Chief Justice may not have wanted to take a suo moto at this stage, and which is why we saw the formation of the commission in the first place. But since then, the way things have transpired, I think it is clear that the scales have shifted in favor of the 6 judges. Why do I say that? Because remember, this is not something which is breaking news for the superior judiciary. The Chief Justice himself clearly said that after these matters came to the fore, before they became public, these judges went and met the Chief Justice. There was a lot of discussion. So clearly the formation of the commission was not something which was an instant response. It was something that was thought of properly, and at that particular point seemed like the best course of action. As events unfolded, clearly that seems to have been a misjudgment. Now, why do I say that the scales have weighed in favor of the 6 judges? Because A, the response which is now coming is an institutional response from the judiciary. The very fact that the Supreme Court has taken suo moto notice, for whatever reason, we leave that aside for a bit. They've taken a suo moto action. The Chief Justice has hinted that there will be a full court. I mean, what more could you want from an institutional response? And on top of that, he said that we're going to have day-to-day hearings. So that rules out the possibility of this particular case dragging on for 6 months or a year. We are looking at an institutional response. We are looking at a full court. We are looking at a speedy hearings, which means that the outcome will come out sooner or later. And that means that whatever was addressed by those 6 judges in their letter will now be dissected in full view of the public, and that will for sure create space for the judiciary. I don't know what specific outcome will come out of this, but what I do know is that because of all of these things that are unfolding right now, at the bare minimum, we are going to see greater confidence in the judiciary, and we are going to see perhaps an element of reluctance from the executive in terms of the kind of meddling or interference that was happening. And I think that's a good outcome.
All right. Mr. Zahid Husain, do you think a lot of political pundits claim that PTI is going to be the ultimate beneficiary of this whole fiasco? Do you agree to that?
Well, I think it's not correct to say that the PTI will be beneficiary of whatever is happening now, and also the response from the Supreme Court. It may be true that PTI has supported the letter, and it has been saying all that before, but I don't think that it will be the party which is sole party which is going to benefit from this. Yes, actually, some of the restrictions mentioned by the judges seems to be regarding the cases which has been taken up by the courts against the PTI. But they also mentioned about the intervention of the intelligence agency in the past too. So I think probably overall, if you see that they had the lawyers which have signed that letter, 300 of them, they are not from the PTI, all of them not from PTI. So yes, certainly they are PTI supporters as well. But it has, the letter has come from the overall the legal fraternity. Even the bar councils, the different bar councils have been asking for action. So I think probably it will be not a victory for any political party. It will, if anything come out of this case, and I hope actually something positive will come out, and I think probably would deter the intelligence agency in the future to meddle or to intervene that blatantly, is going to benefit overall the judiciary. And I think probably that's what the people wanted. And in fact, the very action or suo moto action taken by been taken by the Chief Justice after the lawyers have demanded that, and they have actually written against the institution of that one-man inquiry committee. And I think probably what we are going to see is much more judicial activism. The very fact that a full court will be hearing the case in next month, I think that will lead to something And I think that the judges cannot just sit and after the hearing, actually, they will get up and say, okay, we are not going to do anything. They have to do something. And what would be the response? I don't know exactly, but it will be a great, I think that will be moved forward as far as the independence of judiciary is concerned.
Well, moving on to the next story, Mr. Malik, what is this coming out?
Zunaira, just a second. Zunaira, just a second.
Okay.
I need to make a comment on this.
Yeah, go ahead.
Fahd made a very convincing argument about why certain things will have to shape up. I think so did Zahid. The issue is these judges can sit there and write a new Magna Carta, and I tell you why it won't make a difference. Because already there are punishments for everything. Isn't there Article 6 for violation of Constitution? Has that stopped the abrogation? After the inclusion of Article 6 death penalty, it has been violated at least 5 or 6 times. So a full court sits, full court comes up with the sterling new booklet saying, thou shalt perish if thou intervenes. That can be the whole headline. The problem is nothing is going to change unless the political parties don't change their behavior. When one party or other keeps playing hooky with the intelligence and they keep bringing each other down, they then protect the same people. So you can write the best book. It doesn't matter. The books have already been written. Rules have already been done. Okay, it's not the first time the judges have huffed and puffed in public also. Similar things have happened in the past also. What happened? Where did all that go? The issue is not what this commission is going to write or issue directives and everything. Just in the recent past, how many times Supreme Court orders were violated? Elections, others, did the heavens fall down? No, they didn't. They won't fall down again also. This whole exercise is going to make headlines and everything for the next month till the full bench is sitting, and then nothing. You will see, we are all sitting here. We will have a very strict guidelines coming out, but implementation cannot take place till our parties keep playing with the same intelligence agencies to bring each other down. So that's why I'm being so pessimistic about it. Because the same judges and the same chief justices, when you see their personal conduct and when you see their official conduct, there's a big, big difference. There are glaring contradictions. Shaukat Siddiqui Sahab, in my own show, I told about how he tried to influence me to promote a guy, or otherwise he would rule against me. So for me, he's not a paragon of virtue also. So let's not turn all these people into saints and everything. They have their own things. The Supreme Court itself asked, the judges still had the power to bring people in for contempt and rake them over coals. They didn't. So, you know, we also know a lot of judges.
Right.
We also know a lot of them personally. There are too many skeletons walking around. So you're going to hear a lot of rattling sounds. Does it end up somewhere? My pessimism is in place.
Well, of course, your pessimism is noted, but things cannot go on like this.
Can I also jump in here, Zunaira?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I mean, we all hope Sab is wrong. No, because clearly,
I hope so.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Exactly. but you see, the weight of history favors what he is saying. This is how it's always happened. And I'm not going to dispute the fact that suddenly everything is going to be hunky-dory. In fact, if you recall, a couple of days back, I was watching Rana Sanaullah on some show where he was also saying exactly, what Malik Saab is saying. He said nothing is going to happen, things are going to continue the way they are, and most likely, that is the safest course of action that we can predict. All I'm saying is that I agree with him that nothing. It's not like a switch where you just flip it and suddenly there will be zero interference and from the executive, and the judiciary is going to be suddenly the most independent in the world. No, it's not going to happen like that. But even if we see some baby steps, even if we see some reduction in interference, some reluctance because of this whole media spectacle, I think the judges or the judiciary may have created a little bit more space for itself than it had before that letter was written. Now that might be temporary also, and it might close, but all I'm looking at is a very temporary relief.
Fahd, what I'm saying is that this space is being created by the political leaderships themselves. when they start playing ball with intelligence agencies against one another, that is when these things happen. Unless these guys stop, no amount of lawmaking is going to change anything. That's what I'm saying.
No, I think probably this is not, one cannot expect that overnight things will change, and that's a fact that the political party do play the game once they are in power, and they've all been supporting the establishment when the power, but also opposing them when they are outside it. So that's not the issue. The real issue is that, look, actually, this kind of allegations are not new. That has been made in the past too. But the most positive thing that it has forced the Supreme Court to hold a full court, hearing on that issue. Itself actually is a move forward.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Zahid Husain, for joining us. And we are going to move on to another story after a short break. Welcome back once again, and in this part of the show we have been joined by Meher Bano Qureshi from Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf. She's also daughter of former Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi. Welcome, Meher, to the show. Fahd, before we begin the discussion with Meher, I want a very crisp comment from you on the latest report in The Guardian that says that Indian government ordered killings in Pakistan, and there is quite a detail here which is quite harrowing. In the response, the Defense Minister of India says that he is actually confirming it by saying that if any terrorist from a neighboring country tries to disturb India or carry out any such terrorist activities here, that will be given a befitting response. If he escapes to Pakistan, we will go to Pakistan and kill him there. This is a confession. How do you look at it?
Well, I mean, if you look at how India has been behaving both domestically and internationally, it shouldn't come as a surprise. We all remember how they were involved in the assassination of a Sikh leader in Canada. They've also been linked to an attempted assassination in the US. So this is something that they've been doing, and now they're actually gloating over it. They're boasting about it, and perhaps thinking that this is, if their defense minister or other people can own this publicly, this would be some sort of a deterrence, and it will also reflect on what they might feel is a muscular policy towards their enemies or dissidents or whoever they feel is a threat to their interests. I think, of course, it is extremely irresponsible for a government to say this and get away with it. But we've seen other governments do it. We've seen Israel following the same policy for decades now. So the question is, what do we do now? I've seen the response from the Foreign Office. It's a very formal response. I don't think it really reflects the outrage that we should be expressing at this particular time. I've also seen the response generally within our media circles and society, and it has not reflected the kind of anger or confident retaliation that we should be discussing. There is no way that we can allow India to get away with assassinating people on our soil, Pakistani citizens, and publicly owning it. So clearly the government may have some restraints in terms of what they can do diplomatically, but I think there is so much else that Pakistan actually needs to be doing it to make sure that India realizes that such a policy can also have a very severe blowback.
Right. Mr. Malik, how do you look at the response from Pakistan on this?
I think there are no surprises. It is something we knew all along. Couple of years back, one gentleman from Ahmed Said's party was drowned in Lahore Canal also. And intelligence agencies were very clear what happened and everything. Just a confirmation of what we already knew. But the point is, like Fahd said, a lot of noise needs to be made. Issue is morality never had a place in international diplomacy anyways. It's already dead. The Security Council passed such a strong resolution. Has Israel stopped there? It's all about who has the military might or the economic might. India right now is Western world's darling, especially America and others, both in terms of regional politics. They see them as a counterweight to China and all that, and also its economic progress. So whatever India says, it's going to get away with it. I think the only befitting response Pakistan can give to India or anybody else is to become relevant, and become relevant both by, by its own economic development and everything. We first have to become a serious people to be taken seriously by the world. First, we were relevant because of our nuisance value in Afghanistan and the region, and then our atomic bomb and everything. We've become too used to being heard and taken seriously because, oh, if you don't do this, this might happen. This might get destabilized. Indians have played it right. They've played it wisely. They've become a political power. Later, they've become an economic power. We at least, even if I'm not saying we're going to outdo them in terms of economics and everything, because size matters. Their size is 10 times our size. But having said that, first, unless we fix our own internal house, these things will happen, and nobody's going to give us any importance no matter what we do. So I think Pakistan, it's a wake-up call, another wake-up call for Pakistan, that forget about everything else. If you don't put your house in order, get your economy in place, get a government in place, get things running, start behaving like a serious people.
Yeah,
you'll be treated like the way we are being treated.
There has to be a comprehensive response, in your opinion. Meher, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us. And we are hearing that there are some sort of concrete efforts going on to form a grand alliance with Mahmood Achakzai in it, Akhtar Mengal in it, all the disgruntled people from the present setup. But do you think PTI can afford another street power kind of a protest after what happened on May 9?
Thank you, Zunaira, for the opportunity. I will get into that. I just want to briefly comment. I was listening to everybody, and I want to add my 2 bits. We have to realize that it's also election year in India, and so obviously they're going to play up this rhetoric, and they're going to own it and wear it as a badge of honor. But what we were supposed to do, in fact, while everybody was talking, I was thinking, what was the Foreign Office response? And who's the Foreign Minister? He's so irrelevant, Mr. Dar, as Foreign Minister, that I couldn't even remember that he was the Foreign Minister of Pakistan. And I think that on something so serious, he should have come out with a very strong press conference. And that would have been taken more seriously than a spokesperson giving. We all know that when the minister speaks, when an elected representative speaks, but perhaps they know that they're not elected and they don't have the people's mandate. Therefore, they do not come out with much strength and speak with much belief.
Well,
and that's precisely why, that's precisely why we talk about the stolen mandate. That's precisely why we talk about how important it is for a government to actually be a reflection of the will of the people.
Yeah,
because when that will isn't there,
but for that, are you planning to be on the roads again? What kind of a grand opposition alliance are you looking at?
So two things. The Grand Alliance is not just an alliance for a street movement. The Grand Alliance is an alliance on this particular matter. I think it will also be extended to speak about for the independence of judiciary and for freedom to give decisions in this country according to the law and constitution. Because as you know, and as we all know, in the last 20 months or so, we have seen repeated acts of constitutional violation where there have been no accountability. Elections were not held on time. The Election Commission came up with frivolous excuses. The federal government at the time came up with frivolous excuses of not having money, which were not true, but we took no steps. So I think up until we don't have a strong independent judiciary that can give, you saw how the Supreme Court was not even able to implement its own orders. We see how the courts are not being able to implement their orders or even issue contempt proceedings because their system is completely broken. And that takes me back to what Mr. Malik said about Pakistan needs to become relevant. Absolutely, and we need to become a serious country for that. But how serious a country are we? And how seriously is the world going to take us when we ourselves don't take our laws, our constitution, our people seriously? We have become a laughingstock of the world. You have 6 High Court judges standing up and saying that, we have been threatened, we have been intimidated, our family has been picked up, and the world is listening to this. And the state's response, the government's response has been so weak that the world is like, Pakistan,
so what I gather
not even a
from your points is that you are going to harbor together all the possibilities available to PTI and do politics on that. You are going to be harboring on this judges issue. You are going to be harboring on your stolen mandate issue. You are going to be out with all the allies which were previously with PDM government. So you are going to capitalize almost on everything. But how are you going to do that?
Absolutely, absolutely, Zunaira. We are going to, because it's not to our own benefit. It is for the benefit of Pakistan.
That is the question.
Because I'll tell you, the how is simple. We're in Parliament. We have numbers in Parliament. We have 92 members elected to the National Assembly. They are going to do it there. They're going to raise the issues in Parliament. And we are going to raise the issue amongst the public. We have announced a series of public rallies starting after Eid. We will continue to hold those rallies. We will continue to inform the people. We will continue to create public pressure and a public discourse on these issues.
Would you be allowed to do that?
I think that it is our constitutional right to hold peaceful rallies, and I think if the state does not allow us to do so, they will be in violation of our rights, which it's nothing new for them. Right. But I think that will put greater pressure on them to look like a government with a mandate and to look like a government with some gumption.
Okay, Fahd, you're listening to what Meher is saying. How do you look at this strategy?
Well, yes, I'm listening to Meher Sabah. I think clearly, if you look at it from their point of view, it makes a whole lot of sense, because they have to. The only thing that they've got going for them is this narrative, and of course there is a lot of substance to it. But the issue is that how much space can they actually find for this narrative when they've actually become part of the system? Yes, I know that the PTI's version is that they've resigned from the assemblies once, and you know they've realized that was a mistake. So now they are part of the system. They are part of this Parliament, National Assembly, Senate. They've taken constitutional positions. They've got their chief minister, their government KP. So it's not that they're wanting to rock the system, but while remaining part of that system, they still need to keep their narrative alive, the narrative about the stolen mandate. So what is the best way to go about doing that? Of course, as she's saying, and I agree with her, they have a very significant presence in the Parliament, and they can utilize it well to raise this issue. They can also hit the streets, but I think if they're thinking in terms of creating any kind of a momentum on the streets that can spill over into a movement, I don't think that's going to happen. I think if they're looking at something, a kind of a street a momentum that was built last year after the vote of no confidence, I don't think that's going to happen. If they're looking at some sort of a dharna that they took in 2014, no, that's not going to happen either. But they can create noise, they can create headlines, and I think that should be good enough.
Right. Mr. Malik, it is their right to protest, and we have been witnessing that there have been no rights available to them. Do you think anything's going to change?
No, I'd like to ask a question of Meher Bano, because when we look at it, street agitations are all about numbers games. Sindh is out of their hands; they don't have numbers game there. Balochistan, numbers don't matter there because the numbers aren't there. We talk about Punjab. That's where I think the party is already suffering a fatigue, and even a series of demos that we had in the recent weeks, the numbers weren't there. So, Mehrbano, mujhe aap ye batayein, what I want to ask you is, don't you think you're actually overburdening or overtaxing your own workers? Because every time something like this happens, few more get bundled in, few more get carried away in police vans and everything. And you're already facing a lot of what you call agitational fatigue. You have a very sizable number sitting in Punjab Assembly, in National Assembly, even in Senate. And that is a lot of headlines on a daily basis when sessions are coming and all. Don't you think the party should actually be concentrating more over there instead of losing its workers slowly but gradually and constantly? Nothing is, no supply is infinite.
Okay, Meher, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay, so let me address all of this. Ms. Malik Saab, I understand, and we share your concerns as far as our workers are concerned. And there were 2 protests in Multan, and my primary concern in those protests was to keep my workers safe, to not allow any FIRs to be registered against them. And it was an uphill task, but we managed, because yes, we can't keep building on to that. Agreed. But at the same time, And, you know, like Fahd Saab was also talking about the situation, and we're already part of the system, and maybe we should work within the system. But the problem is, yes, we're part of the system because we'd like to work from within the system, but the system is utterly broken and the system is a sham. And so we have to work from outside the system as well to correct and change and rebuild the system. The system is not working. I think that we all accept. I mean, any educated, intelligent person is going to accept that the system is absolutely not working. It has crumbled. And therefore, the system does not have the solutions for the problems Pakistan faces today. And that is why you see a death-ring response from the government on almost every issue. So coming back to the protests and coming back to our workers and people, Malik Saab, believe you me, that there is a lot of pressure from within our party, from within our worker base, to come out onto the streets and to hold protests and to agitate in some way or to, and I'm not talking about like an unrest of any kind. I'm not talking about coming and blocking roads. We're talking about public rallies. And, you know, PTI has been an innovator in the way that we hold our public rallies. And people loved coming to them because, you know, it was actually a great event. So we're talking about those jalsas, bringing those jalsas back, giving people an outlet, giving people a space where they can channel that, the anger and their frustration in a positive manner. And I think we want to provide them that platform to do so. And in fact, I think if there is no platform provided to them, that anger is going to, that volcano is going to erupt. And the lava will go everywhere.
Thank you so much, Mr. Fahd Husain. Thank you so much, Mr. Malik. And thank you so much, Meher, for joining us. And this is a wrap-up for Epicenter this week.